Good evening and welcome to the November 11th, 2013 regular meeting of the Waterloo Community School District Board of Education. I hereby call the meeting to order. And just for everybody in the audience, Andrea Sparks is participating tonight by speakerphone. So Andrea, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. We'll turn that up. Turn that up so we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, great. Now please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I'll read the school district's mission statement. The Waterloo Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to assure that each and every student will graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship, as evidenced by a continuing education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to a community. And with that, that'll take us to our first agenda item tonight, which is a very good thing. It's a new partnership signing for Orange Elementary. And we've got Terry Trask and Travis Elliott from Orange Elementary School, and then Crystal Buzza, who will provide us some information. We have a number of great partners in education at Orange, but tonight we're welcoming Sam's Club to the mix. So I'll turn it over to Crystal.
All right, thank you. I am very excited that Sam's Club is going to be joining Orange Elementary as a partner in education, and it's kind of fitting that Orange just recently moved into a new building, as we're all aware of, and so with that, I know that Orange has really worked hard to do some unique and neat things with their partners, and so I'm going to let Terry talk about kind of what they're doing for their partner in ed. We'll introduce everybody who's with us, and then we'll allow Jeremy to talk about Sam's Club involvement with partners in education.
Thank you very much. Just like Crystal said, we've decided to breathe some new life into our Partners in Education partnership. In the past, it's been a little bit of a report out, and if things happen, they happen, and we decided to become very intentional about that and truly bring back the partnership piece. So we went and revisited our mission. So beginning with the end in mind, our partnership mission is now we are an active partnership between businesses and school, focused on the enhancement of learning and growing to inspire lifelong learners and leaders. And I think that our partners group would attest to our meetings have become extremely engaging, and our student reps start on Thursday to be a part of that as well. And we're trying to make sure that we're taking students out and expanding our classroom walls, but we're also having people come in and making sure that we're doing just what we set out to do, enhancing learning and growing of our students. So we're really excited about that. With that, I would like to introduce the people that are here with me tonight from the school side. We have Vicki Holler, our third grade teacher, and Kelly Van Dyke is one of our parent representatives. Travis Elliott is our lead teacher, and we would like to very much welcome Jeremy and Justine. And Jeremy got the orange memo. We're very excited about that. There we go. We've been working on it. And welcome them to the Orange Partnership. Even when they were not official, they were official, and they've been active from the get-go. So we really appreciate that, and we have the certificate of recognition, so Jeremy can tell you a little bit about his end, too.
Thank you. Well, I'm very excited about the opportunity to partner with Orange Schools. I think it'll be a great partnership with Sam's Club. Just as the expectation that we put on our teachers to get ready the next generation of leaders and people in the community, it's my job then to take those same people into the workforce and develop them as potential leaders and a part of that society. So as the children are taught these leadership principles, I go to these schools and I go to Orange and I go to some of the other schools in the community and I hear the word synergize and I hear the words win-win from all these students, and I'm like, that's perfect. That's perfect for what's going to get them ready for the business world and the real world when they are ready to take on that next step. Through junior achievement, which I've done for the last couple years, I also see a lot of those terms that I use every day introduced to second and third and fourth and fifth graders and so on and so forth. So I'm very excited to make Orange a part of that partnership with Sam's Club and see what we can get from that. So I take it upon myself then to take these students the children that have been developed with these business attributes and with this win-win and the synergize and take them and turn them into the next generation of leaders and the next generation of my leaders at Sam's Club. So by taking them out of the fold and then getting them into my business, they already have a lot of what they need to go on to that next step. And so I'm really excited to be a part of that with Orange Schools. And it's my hope that through this partnership, the community at large will see the contributions and benefits of Sam's Club and what we're doing for the community at large, and also to see that we have a big value beyond just opening our doors for business members every day and getting those sales done every day, that we do offer quite a bit to the community as well. So I want to thank Terry and Crystal for helping make this partnership happen, and it happened pretty quick. It's already been a pretty fun ride. I've done quite a bit with them already, so I'm excited to continue this relationship. So thank you very much.
Well, Jeremy, thank you. And to Jeremy and Justine, thank you very much. We really appreciate the work. It sounds like you've already done and already started. But, yeah, thank you for being aboard. And to all our partners at Orange and the staff, to everybody, thank you for being here tonight, and best of luck. You've got a beautiful school building as well, so we hope you're enjoying it and getting the most out of it. So thank you all. Excuse me. The next item on our board agenda is Exhibit B. It's on page 2, and this is a board celebration for American Education Week, which is coming up next week, November 18th through the 22nd. And here to discuss this is Tara Thomas. So
I'm
Tara?
just upset that Jeremy didn't bring samples, right?
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
Next
Yes,
time, Jeremy.
That's our favorite
Just
thing.
just
Our
a
favorite.
reminder, starting a week from today is the American Education Week, and this is the annual national observance of the designated week. It's a time that we salute public schools and remind everybody about the relationships between teachers, students, and parents, and individually across the community and at the building level. Certain activities take place in conjunction with the special designation. Also, we alert a lot of folks, both at the schools and in the community businesses that have the electronic message boards, to remind the community about the designation and the fact that we want to just honor what we're doing every week throughout the school year. Thank you.
Tara, thank you. And this is something we've done annually. We'll get the motion on the table, but it's this is a partnership through the NEA, through the National Education Association, and there are a number of good things going on all next week, every day next week. And so with that, we'll get the motion on the table, and then we can have a quick discussion of this. The recommended motion is that the Board of Directors express its appreciation to all employees, volunteers, parents, students, and friends of the Waterloo Community Schools for the role each person plays in the education, and take this opportunity to recognize the education support professionals and substitute teachers in particular for their valuable contribution to great public schools. The board officially designates November 18th through the 22nd of 2013 as American Education Week in the Waterloo Community School District.
So moved.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried with gratitude. So, thank you, Tara.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question as far as, I was just reading this more in depth as far as like Tuesday's Parents' Day, Wednesday's Educational Support Day. So like on that day, Tara, can parents come on Tuesday or whether?
It's my understanding each school will individually plan activities around the week, and at this point, I don't know of any specific school that's doing that just for that day, but we always remind parents that it's an open door policy at all the school buildings, and this is just a good reminder by designating one day as Parents' Day that you can always come by and check out all the great things going on in the classroom. But no, I don't know any specific school event around that.
Well, I didn't know like Friday says Substitute Educators Day if we're going to give all our subs and scratch cupcake that day. Sue might be.
That sounds good.
It's a good idea. I'd
Yeah.
come by for that.
Yeah.
Tara, will you add Orange Elementary because they have a new sign and they're not on this list?
Oh, absolutely. Good
Yeah.
point.
Just probably was just an oversight. They're probably going to get it, but
It's a new sign.
it's a new
Yes.
sign.
Great. Anything further? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Tara, thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is the public comment period. And so we have now come to the time during the board meeting when those who wish may speak publicly to the school board. I would like to remind each speaker, whether you represent yourself or a group, that you have 3 minutes to speak during this portion of the meeting. Mrs. Arndorfer will hold up a yellow card when you have 30 seconds left and a red card when your time has expired. At that time, I'll ask that you conclude your remarks. Waterloo is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. Throughout our meeting, we commit ourselves to these principles, and at no time is it appropriate here to criticize the job performance of a specific employee of the school district because personnel matters are confidential and they must be handled through proper channels and not in a public forum. So with that, I'd like to invite anybody who wishes to address the board to come forward. And if you could just state your name and your address and make sure that that green light is on. Is that on the microphone? Is it on? Okay,
Yes,
great.
it is. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Stacy Yoder. I live at 724 Sunrise Boulevard in Waterloo, obviously, or I couldn't be here. Thank you for this opportunity. It's nice that we get this chance, and I'd love to have the floor, but I wish it was more than 3 minutes. I'm going to start. I know it's not always effective to read something, but I would like to read an email that I sent to Liz Crowley today, the principal of my children's elementary school, Lou Henry. Actually, I am the parent of a third grader there, and then my boys are now in 6th grade. So they are at Hoover. Dear Liz, I sent this today. I wanted to let you know that I plan to speak to the school board as a visitor who is given the floor for 3 minutes at their 6 o'clock meeting tonight. I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear that my concern is with the large third grade class sizes at Lou Henry. When I first learned about the class size increase, I wasn't overly concerned. My first-hand experience substitute teaching in 2 of these third grade classrooms changed my mind. Of all my experiences in Waterloo in the past, Longfellow, McKinstry, Blackhawk, Kittrell, Lincoln, Lowell, and currently at Lou Henry and Hoover, and I do mean substitute teaching. The third grade classrooms I subbed for at Lou Henry this year are among the few of my most difficult experiences. Taking into consideration that I am just a substitute with a wink, I know I'm appreciated, and I feel that at Lou Henry. I have observed on occasion and heard from other parents and students that things are quite similar with the regular classroom teacher present. Teachers with whom I understand classroom management hasn't been an issue in the past. There are some things I want you to know, and I am talking to Liz, before this evening's meeting. First of all, my concern is not with teacher, principal, or school quality. I'm impressed with and proud of what I've seen from our third grade teachers and you as our principal. My concern is strictly the high numbers of students at this grade, many of whom seem to require extra help. Secondly, I have mentioned my concerns to Ms. Harvey since she is my daughter's teacher. I realize her hands are tied. In retrospect, if I had taken the appropriate channels, I probably should have started with you, Liz, then Jane Lindeman, possibly Bev Smith, and then the school board. However, I ran into a member of the board at church yesterday and asked her advice on the most efficient way to handle this concern. She encouraged me to go to the board meeting tonight. I have no idea if my concerns will in any way make a difference, but if there's anything I have learned from my own education, it is that I must try. I am proud, and I truly, sincerely am proud to live in Waterloo and call it my home. I'm thankful that my kids, Oliver, Isaac, and Phoebe's education, I'm thankful for their education here thus far. And I want to see our Waterloo schools succeed as much as anyone. Thank you for your time and all you do. I didn't feel it was necessary to include this, but I want you to know that my husband and I are feeling so burdened by this and feel that it is serious enough that we're considering other options for our daughter. And I'm not talking about trying to get over to Cedar Falls like I know a lot of people talk about. I want to be here. I want my kids in the Waterloo schools. I love it here. I'm so thankful for everything. I'm thankful to you guys for your time and your service. And I don't want to have to do that. So I'm pleading that you could please possibly do something about it yet this year.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
And please understand the 3 minutes, Nothing personal towards you. That's it's been that way. That's just because so we have the board meeting. Now you're always free to talk to school board members. A lot of this is coming up. I think maybe catching everybody a little bit by surprise. So if you could, feel free to send your email to the board members or to Dr. Norris, that sort of thing. You just sent that to Liz this afternoon?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Feel free. It doesn't, you can, the 3-minute limit is kind of when you're on TV, so to speak, but you're more than welcome to talk to anybody at any time outside of that 3 minutes as well. So.
I don't know that I made it clear that I wasn't concerned until I subbed, and that was towards the end of September.
Okay.
I know that another moment has gone by, but I would.
Yeah.
I think if anybody could.
Yeah.
stay in the classroom.
Okay, no, I understand. And stick around. What we've got on our agenda tonight is the student enrollment by building and grade level, and that might be a more appropriate time to kind of talk through it. But again, yeah, you're free to. It's just the 3 minutes when you're on TV, but you can talk to anybody any other time as well. So yeah, we're all ears. So thanks. Anybody else?
My name is Jeannie Coburn, and I live at 2830 Saratoga Drive in Waterloo. My husband and I have a daughter who's in the 3rd grade at Lou Henry. I want to begin by stating that we believe Lou Henry is one of the most top-notch schools that our daughter could possibly attend. The staff's care and concern, as well as their level of expertise and ability to teach, are second to none. We love Lou Henry and everyone there. I strongly believe that everyone in that building loves each child and has only the best interests of the students in mind. My concern today is the increased class size in Waterloo elementary schools. I have discussed this with Mrs. Lindeman, and we had a great discussion about class sizes. She did provide me with some of the rationale behind the decisions that have been made regarding class sizes in Waterloo. I am aware of budget constraints and research that supports quality teaching over class size in regards to academic performance. However, I am aware that for every research study that supports a theory, there is also conflicting research. I have spent time reading and researching regarding class sizes and academic performance and found research to support both sides of this argument. There is conflicting research. When it comes to research involving students in schools, it is extremely difficult to get reliable empirical data other than standardized test scores. I ask you to consider the other factors involved in student success. In an ever-changing world in which educational theory, budget constraints, technological advances, and safety concerns, among so many other issues, the relationship between the students and teachers are critical. Relationships are difficult to quantify, but as you know, they are essential to a child's success. I believe teachers have one of the most important jobs in our country. I was an educator for many years, and so I appreciate the love and passion that teachers have for their profession. It is not an easy job, and the external rewards are few. As you know, teachers teach because they want to make a positive impact in the lives of children. As we move into the next few years, I know that budget issues will be critical for Waterloo schools, as will be for all schools. I ask you to please consider keeping student-teacher ratios low, regardless of the empirical data that you have seen that refute the connection between class size and test performance. There is so much more to a child's lifetime success than test achievement. Social and emotional development is critical to children's lives, and the time that a teacher can spend with a student to build a relationship is priceless and not easily quantifiable. Based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, children need love and belonging before they can achieve esteem and self-actualization. Time and attention from those people who care about them the most is critical. And in a classroom setting, having a reduced class size will provide more opportunities for students and teachers to communicate and bond and ensure success in every aspect of a student's learning. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jeannie. And again, to both of you, just stick around. We've got one more. We've got our consent agenda item coming up next, but then after that, we'll have time to talk about the student enrollment by building and grade levels. Anybody else? Okay. Again, we'll go through the consent agenda now, and then fortunately we've got this topic on our board agenda tonight. So, the next item is the consent agenda, which tonight consists of the minutes of our last regular board meeting on October 28th, Personnel appointments and adjustments since our last board meeting. Bills due and payable since our last school board meeting. Then we've got the renewal of the cooperative sponsorship agreement. This is with Waterloo Christian, and it's for football at West High for 2 more years. It's a continuation of the contract that's been in place for a number of years, the sharing agreement. And then lastly, we have the Innovation STEAM grant submission with the Gallagher Blue Performing Arts Center. STEAM, and the A is for arts, and the STEM, so STEM plus arts. And it's for a submission of a grant. It's through the President's Commission on Arts and Humanities. Are there any items on the consent agenda that board members wish to be removed? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask that Exhibit E, bills due and payable between board meetings, be removed because I'll abstain on that one.
Could we go ahead and remove G as well?
In G, okay, and that's the STEAM, Innovation STEAM grant. That's Exhibit G. Anything else? Okay, if not, I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of item E and G.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried. The that takes us then to Exhibit E. It starts on page 9 in our board packet, and the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the bills due and payable and the bills paid between board meetings. Can we get that motion on the table?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay, second. And just before we start discussion, I'll abstain from voting on this because as an attorney, I represent a client who's paid by one of the bills. Any further discussion on this? Then none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion, chair abstains. Thank you. Motion carried. The next item then on our agenda is Exhibit G on page 19. This is regarding that Innovation STEAM grant. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education authorizes submission of the grant to the Innovation STEAM grant in the amount of $10,000 and the approval of any resulting award.
So moved.
Thank you. In a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. In discussion.
Could we just get some more information about this?
And we've got Dr. Debbie Lee is here.
I didn't want you to come for no reason, so.
Hi, you just haven't heard from me for a while, and you want me to have to talk. So, do you have specific questions about the grant, or do you want me just to kind of explain to you what our intent and purpose is with this?
Yes,
okay,
please.
that'd be great. This really supports. You saw Amy Hunselman was here and did a informational presentation to the board about our partnership with the Gallagher Blue Dorn and that partnership with the Kennedy Center. Part of that partnership is the Moving Through Math initiative that we've been doing for several years, which combines movement with the math learning at our kindergarten and first grade levels. So this grant will actually help us sustain that because we have written that into our curriculum. So we always need to find ways to sustain that with new teachers to provide ongoing professional development. And so there are 2 pieces to this grant and how we're going to use that funding. One is to do that ongoing PD with the teachers who have already had this training. We just want to keep them up to speed on it, as well as then any new teachers that come into our district. We want to provide that professional development for them to incorporate that into their instruction. And then the second piece of that is that we are going to expand that to our pre-K level. So we have plans to do the Moving Through Math with our pre-K students and with those teachers. And then this funding would pay for the consultant who comes in and does that work and the professional development and the materials for the pre-K level.
What did you go through to apply for this then?
Amy Hunselman is always on the lookout for grants that we can use to help fund our partnership together. So Amy actually found this. It came through the Kennedy Center. I think it came in an email to her. And so she said, we need to do this. And I said, we're with you on that. And she pretty much did the bulk of the work. And here we are.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you, Debbie.
Do not skip back to your place.
May I leave, sir?
Yes. Just don't skip. Too much ice out there.
All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, motion carried. Debbie, thanks again. All right, the next item on our agenda is the student enrollment. This is Exhibit H on page 21 of our board packet, and I may turn this over to Dr. Norris. This is for information only, but in here we have the final enrollment report that's it's a snapshot still taken as of October 24th of 2013. And Dr. Norris, I'll turn it over to you, and then
I'd be happy to. We are up about 185 to 188 students this year, and it's actually been an increase all over the district. It wasn't just any specific area. There are a considerable number of students beginning to move through and form kind of an enrollment bubble, and we're pleased with that. I did want to make a comment, and I do thank our parents and substitute teachers for coming tonight. We're always concerned about your concerns about class sizes, and I've asked Jane if she would set up a meeting with the principal and with Stacy, and if possible, so we can go over. And I would also like to say that I'm not aware that in our allocation system we have increased what we're looking for in those ranges. We've kept them the same for the past 6 years. And so any increase that was referred to may have just been because we're trying to be efficient and try to live within our allocations. But we have not been on a mission to increase class sizes, nor, in fact, we've added lots of teachers to the school district, lots. I don't have those in front of me, but Jane can. We have a formula that we allocate. It's lesser numbers at kindergarten and then more at 5th grade, and every school receives the exact same allocation. We try to match the interesting thing about class size is that it's impossible to hit it right on the nose and perfectly. And as some of you suggested before, we always hear when there's one that's a little big, and we don't hear from those that are a little small, but so we're trying to be good stewards of tax dollars, but also try to keep in mind some of the good comments that our speakers had. We don't disagree with any of the things they said. So anyway, I'll have Jane set up some meetings with them, and we can address their concerns. Regarding the enrollment, what happens with increased enrollment is that generates additional allocations for the buildings and for the teachers, and so it wouldn't, the enrollment increase would not increase the class size, it would increase their allocation per building. Sometimes, as I just mentioned, I know I'm repeating myself, sometimes class size is a factor of what kids are at what grade level, who moves in and out over the summer, and those things. So anyway, other questions about the enrollment changes?
I do think we just need, I'm sure you are, but cognizant of the fact that when a large class like this moves through the system, some years you want that class smaller. If you they're pushing the limits right now, and I don't know if they're the highest average of 3rd grade in the district, but they probably
Not by
are.
far.
Huh?
No, they're not.
What school has a higher average?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
But 27, 28 at 3rd grade seems like it's probably pushing our. Jane, do you have the?
Becker's actually the highest.
Okay. But that'll vary.
And
Some from
Orange has got about the same numbers,
About the same.
and
Okay.
Lou Henry is in there. We have one of our class sizes at Lou Henry is made the other classes get a little bit bigger because of the modular. We try to keep that a teeny bit smaller. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
But my point is, there can be a cumulative effect if that same large class is restricted to 3 sections or 4 sections or whatever it is every year. So I think it's a valid point that, and I don't know what the class size was last year for these same kids or the year before, but it tends to roll through, and sometimes that class has a large class size every year. And it seems like we ought to just be considerate of that.
Well, I totally agree with you, Lyle. It just so happens second grade is at 20, 20, 20, and 19, I believe. And so they'll be at third grade next year. And
no, I mean the what do you call it? The continuous group, so that
I fully get
when they were in when they were in second grade, if they had a large class size, then it makes a stronger argument, I think, to look at it in third grade.
Well, we have really 3 methods of dealing with class size. One is by assigning additional staff, as you know. Another is by moving. As schools grow, we sometimes run out of space in those schools. We have to reassign boundaries. And a third is through busing. So those are really our 3 choices. And we unfortunately, in Lou Henry, we're already somewhat cramped for classrooms, and so the other choices might be busing or redrawing the boundaries if we wanted to go the other direction.
The only thing I would add to that, Lyle, I think that's a really good comment. From my experiences, and I haven't been doing this portion for that long, but I have noticed that because Waterloo's mobility is a little bit higher, that has not been a trend that the enrollment stays the same at a certain grade level all the way through kindergarten to 5th. So it changes enough that one year they might be really low, like I believe was the case with this course or this particular class. I think they were split into additional sections, and so it was a little bit lower last year, so it seems like a little more drastic change as it goes through. And I would say that, and I don't want to go on the record as that. I'd have to check that out, what their class size was last year for this particular third grade class as second grade. But that has not been my experience, that it's the same class that's always high. Our mobility changes, and so one year they're a little bit lower. Maybe they're down in class size of 19 or 20, and then the next year it's 26, 27. Then they might be down to 24. It really does not appear to always seem like the same class has a higher class size. I just wanted to add that.
Okay.
Well, and my question is, Jane, so let's say there's maybe 30 in a class and 28 in this class. Do we look at like IEPs in that class? Because they both had spoke a little bit about the disruptiveness, or, so how do, like maybe there's a class of 24, but there's 5 IEPs with paras.
Sure, absolutely. We do definitely look at that when we give guidance from the district level when we talk about loose and tight. There are certain things that are pretty tight and consistent from building to building. We do ask principals to look at the way that they schedule their children into which teachers' classes, and they do take into consideration the needs of students and a variety of things, the size of the classroom. I mean, there's a variety of factors. I had a great opportunity to meet with Jeannie earlier, and we talked about all the different things that would go into that consideration as they make that decision. Even things down to might have a brand new teacher who's coming with maybe not as much experience, so they may opt to change the class size just a little bit there. We saw a good example here with the modulars that changes the class size. So there's just a variety of things. Believe me, it would be so much easier if there were just this little formula and you click the button and boom, it's done. It's really quite a complex formula when you look at all the factors that have to play into that. So.
So we've made our commitments on the transfers. I mean, looks like it does have the most students of any elementary, correct? 539. And the 5th grade class is, the next 2 class, 4th and 5th are some of the smaller classes. So, unless we control it somehow, if the trend line of K through third holds, you're going to have another 20 students in each class the next 2 years. So now you're really pushing. I don't know how many options.
Redistricting?
Uh,
You talking about boundaries?
No, I'm not talking about boundaries. I'm talking about facilities, though. So we've already have 2 modulars. What, 4 classrooms?
2.
Each got 1 classroom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I would think we would want to, if we could, not necessarily, but be cognizant of that on our voluntary transfers at least.
It's
Yeah,
been
and we
close.
did not do voluntary transfers this year for that very reason.
Yeah.
And you still have 97
Correct.
kindergartners in
Right,
the
and I
district.
think that Lou Henry, if I remember right, has had 10 new move-ins in since September 1. And I think the majority of those were at first grade. I think. I'm
All right.
not sure on that, but they've had 10 move-ins just since that time.
Well, that starts to define the problem and how much flexibility we have. So,
Sure.
Okay.
I forgot the fourth option, which is not really regarded as an option by many, but many districts, and it was tried for years, many districts take, if there's a large class of, say, 4th grade right next to 3rd grade, they do a combination room. And
Yeah.
if you've got a good teacher and good students, that works out very fine, but it's still something parents believe is hazardous to their kids. And so we haven't really pushed that this year. That's one other option. None of the options are perfect.
And just along those lines, Jeannie and Stacy, what you're seeing a little bit is that discussion. Now, usually we have it earlier in the year, those discussions. I mean, especially in August, they're meeting every day with Dr.
Right.
Smith and Jane. And so what they do, I'll hold this up, you can't see it anywhere. They have spreadsheets with all the district classrooms. What you're hearing is a couple things in play. One is, as a public school district, you take all comers. And so if a student moves in, if you moved into your house, let's say since September 1st, and you're in the Lou Henry district and you want to enroll your kids, we'll welcome you with open arms. Everybody deserves a right to a good public education, and we think we offer a great public education. So you bring students in. There's no perfect way to do it, though, in terms of every building. If there are 108 students at Lou Henry in 3rd grade, and there are 57, you'll see in the next line at Lowell, that brings a conundrum, because I'm assuming Lowell is probably 3, but you take that down to 2, and then they have a larger class size. You're always dealing with where things a little bit too high. So the colors on here, I think pink means a little bit too high.
Means we're watching it very closely.
It's being watched. Is yellow low? Or
No, yellow's watched.
Okay.
White is moderate, and green is the ones
Light.
we never hear from.
And what you can't do is pick up kids. You couldn't pick up kids, for example, from Lowell and bus them to Lou Henry or vice versa. Nobody thinks that would be good, especially it's November 11th. And so what are you going to do now? You can't tell people that they have to move either. You can't say you live in Lou Henry, you got to go move to Lowell, and go there. So there are all these factors that come into play in doing it. But what I assure you, and I'm saying this is just as a school board member, we're not district employees, we're not paid. We kind of see it from both levels. So we're parents as well. And so I see it with my son in his classes that just started kindergarten at Kingsley. But you see it from the district side too. Please understand, though, that the administrators, the principal, and those in the buildings are constantly looking at this, especially in the beginning of the year. And often they don't have a perfect choice, whether that's to split and go 2 grades in one classroom, which is probably the best way to make sure everything's equal, because you know exactly how many you need to pull. If you need to pull 7 from 3rd grade and 13 from 4th grade, and you're going to get to 20, that's pretty easy to do, but that's not an ideal situation necessarily. You can't tell people where they're going to live. You can't shut the school doors and not let them in. So you're always looking at things, adding paras, for example, which in my son's class in kindergarten, that's what they did, because it wouldn't work to split up. The class size would be too small, and there wouldn't be room. to have it as well. The other thing, though, what we do, though, as board members, and I think you hear it from the community as well, is you've got to work within a budget also. And so I'm not trying to place all the blame on everybody else. We just saw it with voters last week with the grout. Voters don't necessarily just want to pay more property taxes automatically to pay for everything else, especially if you're looking at a school district where we have reduced our class size numbers over the last few years. Now, I know that doesn't mean anything to you necessarily in third grade at Lou Henry, but when you're looking at the aggregate, it does, that the class sizes have been reduced and we have added more teachers. So it's not an easy thing to do. But I'll finish it with this, is talk to Liz. You sent her an email this afternoon. Feel free to talk to board members at any time, but meet with Jane and call Jane or call Dr. Norris and meet with them as well and talk to them about the concerns about what's going well and what isn't going well, and just understand why the decisions, why they're made. And so, and I think what you'll find out, you may not necessarily agree with every decision that's made in every classroom, but hopefully you'll understand the rationale and the reasoning behind those decisions. And they're not easy. And if you've got a better decision or suggestion, offer it to them as well, because nobody's trying to, jam a bunch of kids into a classroom just for kicks. They all want to do what's right for the students. So they'll take all those other things into factors. And just what you were talking about in terms of the, what does the research say? The data, it can point in different directions as well, but oftentimes it comes down to what's a principal, what's the team decide what's best for a classroom and these particular students in this particular school. So just know that they're working on it, and they have been working on it for weeks and weeks and weeks. Yeah, as well.
And now, would we allow, like, let's say, if a parent was very upset about a high number, and let's say at another school there's a lower number in that grade, would we allow that as a reason to go to another school and another classroom?
Well, I think we'd have to be real cautious of that, because to offer it to one means we really do need to offer it to all, and then we need to think about transportation and who pays the transportation and all of those things. So I think there would be some serious considerations we need to discuss in that. And our, again, I just need to reiterate, our there has been no increase in class size. We haven't changed that for a while. Matter of fact, I think we're probably even a little more cognizant of that now than we ever were in, I've only been with Waterloo 9 years, but, since I've been here, I know that, when you read your statement, you were talking about that when you first became aware of the increase in class sizes, I think you were talking about the increase for your daughter's class, not necessarily that there was a policy change of increase. Yeah, I just want to make sure. I thought that's what you meant. Yeah, so that it just changed, but that was the situation because of move-ins and move-outs, and the class size for that class changed, but it was not due to a policy change of an increase.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that option was.
Yeah, and the thing I thought, just to be very blunt on parents, from those that I've talked to, and again, usually it's in August, and some parents have brought up to me, could students transfer out to other schools where there are less kids? And then when I've drilled down deeper, they've all said they want their child to stay in that classroom, and they want somebody else's kids to leave. And that it just gets to be such a tricky thing. What I will say is this: there's never any perfect way to do it. If you talk to somebody from a school district who has very high increasing enrollment, that's an issue, because the allocations that we're going through now, we're up 188 students. Most, if not all, the districts around us, contiguous districts, are down this year. Now, that funding doesn't come until next year. So those that are down will have the same funding this year. They'll just have less students to teach this year. Those that have really high growth, and most of them you see around the Des Moines area. Right. I think Des Moines proper is actually up pretty significantly, but Waukee and Ankeny and others, they've got a problem because they've got exploding growth, but they don't get the money until the following year. The bottom line is there's no easy way to do it unless everybody was steady every year. And then you could go through and you do redistricting, you do two-level classes, you'd have a bunch of flex space in terms of buildings and that sort of thing. That'd be the only way, I think, to handle it perfectly. But you talked about Florida would redistrict every year.
Well,
a while.
I think I mentioned, and this is not that I would ever do it or it was a good idea, but in the elementary school I went to 150 years ago, they redrew, there was a different boundary line for every grade. So that's the way they
That's a way
balanced
you
class
could do it.
sizes perfectly by just wherever the fourth graders lived, you would draw that for the schools. Class sizes would be perfect.
Perfect. You could go 22
I
at every 24.
specifically went to a couple of different elementary schools, but I stayed in the same house.
Yeah.
Which I think we would all think is horrific. Now Lyle's getting, I can tell by his face, he's getting ready to say, well, I see what the problem is now.
I was just going to ask if you're going to prescribe the number of kids that can be born each year.
Yep. Yes.
So we do take, the bottom line is we take this really seriously, and it's quite a balancing act, but we'd love to inform you and other parents.
It does look like the trend is rising.
Yes.
You look
Yeah.
at the K1-2
Yep.
Yeah.
versus the 4-5 and high school. We better be preparing
Yep.
Orange
Yeah.
for some more classrooms because
Right.
they have the most room at this point, don't they?
Yeah, and you see Becker, Lou Henry, and Poynter are all in the 530s. Yeah, Highlands at 500. Excuse me, Lincoln's at 426. I'm sorry, 426. But yeah, Orange at 517. So you see them. Yeah, Orange has the most room to grow. Obviously, Kingsley and Lowell, those are buildings, old buildings that were renovated, so they've got the least flexibility as well. But again, it goes to show you there are always issues to deal with. If you've got declining enrollment, that brings a whole host of great on class sizes, but then you're talking about budget cuts and consolidation, and layoffs and everything else. So, anything further? Okay. Hearing none, and feel free to stick around.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, and that's it. I don't know specifically. The tough thing about bringing this up today, to be very frank, I don't think we've ever had this question brought up in November before. With the changes that go through, but what you've got to do is give them a chance to respond. And I know you weren't up here grandstanding, but sometimes people will come up and ask things when the courier's here or when they're on TV, and it just isn't fair to the administrators primarily that have been working on those issues to figure it out. So kind of feel free to ask, but it's probably not going to be in a board. It depends what you want to get done, what you're trying to accomplish. But yeah, to understand it and kind of work through the problems, you've got to give them a chance to go through and respond. And standing here, I don't know why the decisions were made as to what was increased at Orange and at Lou Henry, and then what was decreased as well, kind of where the allocations went in. But just ask those. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
It's very simple.
The quick answer is that there's a higher class size allocation for 3-5 versus K2. So when you you switch from the K2 band to move to the 3-5, the class size, the formula goes up a little bit. You can have a little bit bigger class size in the older grades versus the younger grades. We definitely keep them a little bit smaller. And there were more students in second grade than there were in third grade. Some of the students moved away, and I'm sure some moved in, but the net was lower. So the second grade class last year was bigger than what the third grade class is this year. So you put that with the fact that they switched to a higher allocation band, those two things absolutely make the difference. Does that help, Sarah?
I think that at least explains the 5 to 4.
Right.
Yeah. The standard footprint for all of our schools except Orange and the 2 renovated was 4 sections of K1, 2, and 3 sections of 3, 4, 5. That was the
Right.
That's happened to a lot of our kids.
Right.
My kids twice.
And we do meet every single day to make that decision, and it is a little bit of a trick to find the perfect time to make that move. You don't want to do it too soon that you have to change it back, but you also don't want to do it too late to you want to do it as soon as possible, but as soon as reasonably possible. So we could make changes on the first or second or third day, but quite honestly, we do have additional students that join us after Labor Day, even, as late as that time. So our enrollment is not as solid. I think LYLE in the past has asked some really good questions about where do we land and about what percentage of our kids are here on the first day, second day, third day. From history, we know about when the majority of our kids are here. It still changes, but we do have that down to I'm not going to say science, but we have a pretty good idea when that shows up. And so, we stay at it every single day. When Jeannie and I met, I described that to her. Every single day we meet for many weeks. And it changes. Every day is a new adventure because one section that was light one day can go all the way to heavy by the next day. So.
But even this data from 93 overall elementary was like 51-41, and on 10-24 it was 51-59. So it went up in 6 weeks, so obviously that's a hard thing to figure out.
And again, it's dealing with the issue of increasing enrollment brings with it some challenges, but dealing with decreasing enrollment, unless you could just perfectly keep everything static all the time or a slight increase, you're always going to have issues as to where, basically how you allocate, and then dealing with the funding, which again comes in the following year. Okay, anything further? If not, the next item on our agenda is Exhibit I. It's on page 23. This is for a land lease agreement for a cell phone tower at West High School. And this is on page, again, on page 23. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the recommendation from the District Facility Committee and approve the land lease agreement with the Waterloo MSA LP, doing business as Verizon Wireless, as presented. Can we get that motion on the table?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
I guess it's coming from a committee and doesn't need a second, but we've got it on the table. This is for a cell phone tower at West High School that I believe is it will be the right field foul pole.
Correct.
At West High School.
Look at page 41.
Yeah, and it's just right next to where the tennis courts are for anybody in the audience at home.
So the tower extends the exact softball tower with lights on. They put up a taller tower, still put the lights on. It's exactly the same place. Looks a little taller. It's I think Marty told me it's the stealth version of the tower, which means it doesn't have all of the things you see around it. Mm-hmm. It's just a one tower.
Designed to look like the light pole.
Designed to look like the light pole and then go on up. And the building, the building space goes where the pin is there on the map. And we had talked about this in facilities, and then that was about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the attorneys grapple with it and make it a little more user friendly for the school district. And then we had our liability insurers look at it, and Chris Faraday had his way with it. And then Michael Coughlin got into a little more hard bargaining with Verizon, and Michael had his way with it. And so we're now back at you with what we think is a reasonable deal and good for the school district, $12,000 a month.
And Michael got a 33% increase in the
is that what he?
the
Yeah.
rental
Okay.
increase to the school district. So
Okay.
drives a hard bargain. Good work. And again, it's the income, the rental income is $12,000 a year per year, and that is every once in a while we'll look in the budget of where the revenue comes in for the district. This would be the other supplemental, income that comes in.
The other thing that's interesting is they needed a space pretty close to the intersection of Ridgeway and Kimball, so there was going to be a tower somewhere within that two or
Gotcha.
three block area, and we thought it would be, and then that's what the facilities committee talked about, thought that to take advantage of the revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So, how tall is the light pole tower?
Andrea, it extended, let's see if I can find the total height. It extended about 30 to 40 feet above the existing pole.
Yeah.
So it may be around 80 foot tall, and the existing one is probably around 40 or 50. So it adds 30
I wanted
or
to
40.
say it was 20 to 30 when
Okay.
we saw it a year ago. But I think the lights will be on the same
The lights are in the
Lights
same
are
spot.
exactly
same
the same.
spot. It's just it'll extend up a little bit higher,
Okay.
about 25% higher.
Good target for a right field home run.
Yes. Put a net up around it.
Yeah. Magnet.
Yeah.
Good bargaining, Michael.
Yes. Good work. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. Then the next item on our agenda is Exhibit J. This is on page 42. It's our last action item on the agenda, and this is for a modified allowable growth request to the School Budget Review Committee, primarily for the increase in students that we have, which is seeking $1,154,000 in increased allowable growth because of our increased enrollment. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education authorize the administration to submit to the SBRC application form to the School Budget Review Committee requesting 2013-2014 modified allowable growth funding totaling $1,345,641 to be funded by the 2014-2015 cash reserve levies. Could we get that motion on the table?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. In discussion, again, Mr. Coughlin, I'll turn it over to you just for a summary of this.
Okay. Thank you. This is an annual review that is filled out basically by the enrollment report that the district submits in the fall after the official count. And what it does then is if we have increased enrollment overall, which we do this year, we are able to apply to the SBRC to get the authority for that money in the current budget year. We've got 188 more kids to support, so we can raise our authority to be able to fund the education of those students. The open enrollment is an either or. If we don't have any increase in regular enrollment and the open enrollment out increases, we can apply for that. But this year the open enrollment out increase was 67.7, so the 188 superseded that, so you get one or the other. So it all is accounted for in the 188 students increase in enrollment. And then the third category is ELL, the English second language students, where again they did by legislative action increase our funding from 4 years to 5 years at 2.2 of the students that are identified as needing ELL services. But even above that, there's I think last year we had a pretty extensive explanation by Amy White and Larry Martin when they were here, explaining that there's much more requirements to those students than just teaching them English. It's teaching them instructional English where they can succeed in the classroom. And they have a series of tests that identify those kids. And by that, we had 142 kids. And we had just in one particular area 50 extra kids this year that were Burmese. So they were all brand new, that whole, just that one section. So from that, the 142 kids times the .22 weighting, and then we get to apply for that as allowable growth increase as well. Now this is similar to the action that was taken with the special ed balance. Yes, we are getting the authority for that, but you are not guaranteeing funding until you do the budget in April. So this is just saying we want the authority. But then in April, when you see your whole budget picture, the tax levy rate, and all of those criteria, then you decide how that's going to be all funded with cash reserve. So, but it does give you the authority, which is, as all of you have heard, Larry Siegel's presentations is the most important number that we have. So I would strongly recommend that we take the advantage of this allowable growth authority number, and then the whole discussion of how it is funded through cash reserve comes in the spring when we do our taxes, and that brings in a lot of other elements, as you very well know. So we're borrowing against next year's cash reserve as opposed to converting this year's cash reserve.
This year's cash reserve has already been,
Levied.
the majority of it was supporting this action last year. There was $1 million, I think $1.8 million of just straight cash flow that we have used over the last several years to make up for the 10% across the board cut that came back in 2009. That we got a full 4% allowable growth, but then halfway through the year it was, sorry, we can't pay you all that. We're going to send you 10% less in cash. So we have been year by year within our tax levy rate target, levying back that money that we lost, because it was about $10 million. We still are not, still have not recovered all of that. I give you an exhibit on that during the tax discussion every year. But we're about 2/3 of the way through that, roughly, of getting that back.
But the cash reserve levy is a discretionary levy.
It is.
So are you saying this adds to the max? I mean, is there a max on cash reserve?
There is, but we are far below. We could levy a figure about 10 times this and still be within the...
Okay, so I'm not sure what the relevance of the levy is. I mean, we're just going to levy what we choose to next year, and it seems like we would just take the cash from this year to fund it as opposed to...
The cash from this year is funding the loss of the $10 million and funding this increase in allowable growth from last year that we took. So that's money already committed to two different areas.
So we're borrowing from next year.
I don't think I agree with that. terminology.
And we need the allowable growth. I mean, the thing is, you want your allowable growth, you want as much as you can. I mean, and we can choose to do what we do with our levy, but why not try and recoup some of this as
you're
our...
not really recouping it. You're just getting permission for the allowable, what do you call it, the annual amount increase.
Allowable growth.
Well, not just the growth, but the allowable.
Authorized balance?
Yeah.
Unspent balance?
Your authorized spending, but it all comes out of the cash reserve, every dollar of it, right? We're just asking to have the authority to spend it.
We're asking for that the authority of those extra kids bring, the cost of the expense of those extra kids, the authority be put in the same year that they show up. Not wait a year to count them.
Yeah.
And get the authority next year.
The authority, but if you don't transfer the money this year, what's the purpose of the authority if you don't have the money?
It's cumulative to the extent that you don't spend it. So we're building, for a year from now, we're building our authority to fund the school system, rather than letting it go.
Yeah.
If we don't fund it, I mean, if we don't get the authority now, it's a lost opportunity.
But you still need the money, whatever it is. Is this the 1 million?
That's exactly what Michael's saying.
So you need the money this year. And so, in fact, you're just going to take it out of the cash reserve this year and spend it.
It will have an effect on the cash reserve, but we also need it in the authority.
You can't take it if you don't have the authority
Yeah.
for it, though. Right?
Correct. You can't spend.
And
I'm not
again,
questioning
we're
the
not
authority.
increasing, we're not doing anything with the tax
just
rate or the cash flow in right now. It's just those options will be on the table in the spring when we do set our budget. Michael, does that?
But this decision says we're going to take $1.1 million, give us the authority to spend an extra
Of allowable growth.
$1.1 million,
Because we have 188 more kids, yeah.
and it's going
And
to
the
come
32
out dollar
more.
for dollar out of the cash reserve.
I think the part we're not saying is we don't intend to spend all of that $1.1 million this year.
And that'll take a board action when we go through our budget in the spring, correct?
When we do
This doesn't change anything to the budget or the tax rate we have for this year.
No, it can't change that.
Yeah, we can't change that. We'll have to vote on that and discuss that
I'm just confused by this.
usually in March or
All right,
April,
fine.
possibly May, depending on the legislature.
But the 2014-2015 cash reserve levy doesn't give us $1 this year.
No, it just backfills the authority we get from this action.
Yeah.
To put it into 13-14.
I'm not sure of the relevance of that.
Any further questions? And Pat, I'm sorry, because if you've never dealt with school finance before, we've probably tied you in knots. We can explain to you a little bit afterwards. It's not an easy topic. We'll explain it after the meeting. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried. That concludes the action items on our agenda. So next, we'll hear from Dr. Norse with the superintendent's report.
Just a couple of updates. The meetings, and I shared this with you in writing, but the meetings with the superintendents, not only at SAI, but the meetings with IASB advisory were very interesting, given lots of discussion about what assessment's going to look like in the next 5 years in Iowa. Lots of, I think as more and more superintendents from smaller districts begin to realize that as NCLB closes in on them, like it started closing in on the Waterloo schools probably 7 years ago when we had our first school on the SINA list. And I think other superintendents are realizing now their schools are on SINA lists, and they're having to explain that to people. And in addition to that, since there's no hope of a No Child Left Behind waiver, like we're one of only 8 states that don't qualify for that waiver, then it's probably, they are probably going to have to make some restructuring decisions like we've had to make in Waterloo, where we've actually changed principals, moved teachers around, et cetera, et cetera. So the reason I'm bringing all of that up is because there was just a real tension in the air, and people really realizing that the superintendent, I don't think I've ever heard a room full of superintendents, a majority of which were in agreement that the Iowa assessment program is not serving us well for all of the reasons we've stated the last 4, 5, 6 years. And so that was kind of brought to a head, and it was just fascinating discussion. And it's going to be on the legislature's radar this year. I'm not sure they'll do anything about it, but there's, some superintendents are saying be careful of what you wish for, and others were saying, we're not happy with Iowa assessments. And so it's a natural discussion when people are feeling pressure, and the pressure's coming about because of the same things that you all have felt pressure for the last 8 years. It's just now being felt in some districts. The other thing I would say is UNI has launched a Center for Educational Transformation. It's called CET, and it's a program, or it's a center that's in Iowa Code that happened at the closure of Price Lab. How are they going to keep the research component of UNI's College of Education alive? And so they've invited myself and a few others to be on their advisory board. I had a meeting last week, and it's going to be a research center that hopefully has relevance to the teachers in Iowa. What problems are there with education in Iowa, and how can the research center help? And I was very appreciative that there was at least one practitioner on the committee. There happened to be a math teacher there from another school district. I was glad that at least one other teacher was there, and because sometimes, just occasionally, universities can get a little bit carried away with components of research, etc. I, for one, will be just trying to keep them focused on the fact that teachers have to feel confident in the study that's being done. It has to be something not just out of someone's whim, but something that teachers really view as a real problem. And so I'm going to encourage them to solve real-world classroom problems that can really, and they want to. That's really what they want to do. So, but it was fascinating to attend the first meeting of that too. We've had about 3 or 4 weeks now of our high school task force meetings, and fortunately, a few more people began attending each meeting. That's starting to look up a little bit, and we've had a lot of good input. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Norris. And may start with Lyle Schmidt. We'll hear from individual school board members and information. Lyle?
Just 2 items, just to follow up on the community meetings. I think there's one this week tomorrow night at Becker, right?
Yep.
Correct.
And then Thursday, is there another one? I think.
Yes.
7 o'clock tomorrow night at Becker, and
Thursday nights at the Grout.
at 7
Thursday
o'clock.
night at the Grout. So we had good discussion at Orange, I thought, the other night. So, yeah, each meeting seems to have a few more, in which it makes it a better meeting. So
Exactly.
invite everybody to come. And then Sue and I went on Saturday to the Staff Sergeant Eric Stephanie's. It was really very respectful, very appropriate event. Well attended. Tara did a nice job tying the various segments together. And of course, the Patriot and MVET writers really set it off. So thanks to them, thanks to everybody. I thought it was very well done. And I'm hoping that the family felt so as well. So we'll probably comment on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Lyle. And Mike Kinchy.
Just want to say appreciate all the veterans. This day is for you, and hope everyone had a enjoyable day. And also looking forward to the Iowa School Board meetings coming up next week. So that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And Andrea, we'll put you on the spot next. Do you have any report? I'll put the mic.
Oh, yes. I want to talk about the Waterloo School Student News.
Oh, yes.
WSSN, as they're known as, had their first debut. On-air and production crew did a wonderful job. I'm really happy that the Waterloo schools can provide this kind of opportunity to our students. And I guess it's going to be weekly or daily. I'm not quite sure, but I want to thank everyone involved. There's a lot of hard work by staff and students. But their first news program was great, so I just want to congratulate them on that.
Great.
I also want to thank the board for all its support and patience right now while I'm at home recovering from back surgery. And hopefully by December I'll be able to actually come and sit in that chair again. So.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, Andrea, thank you, and we will welcome you back in person. But we appreciate you being on the phone, and hope you're continuing to get a little stronger and a little better every day. So. Oh yes, yes. We'll be like your offensive line when you come in. We'll clear the path for you. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Andrea, you didn't hear that, but we're also worried about LYLE on ice.
Yeah. So the board members, we're kind of a beat up crew right now. So. Yes. We'll hope for no more problems for anybody. So, Andrea, thank you, and Shayla McNally.
I just want to take a minute to congratulate our fellow board member, Angela Weekly. She was nominated recently and won the 20 Under 40 award from the Courier. So, yay, that's exciting.
Yes.
So, and she's not hurt, so that's good. Oh, I didn't mean to embarrass you. Well, you can't talk about it yourself.
I'm not 40 yet. I'm under 40. I know, but he was like, "Are you 40?"
On the upper end of the 20s.
Yes.
Didn't mean to.
But thank you, Shanley. And Sue Flynn.
Piggybacking what Lyle said, I was very impressed with the West High students that came and sang at the event and came on a Saturday, and to respect, the veterans and the memory of Mr. Stephanie and his mother was. I spoke with her. Was very appreciative and just thanks the district a lot for that and just the memory. So, and then also I just wanted to, West High, I think probably East too, had a ceremony today honoring the veterans, and I just think that's huge for our kids to just keep seeing that, because that's a vital part of why they have freedom. So, and lastly, I just want to support all of our winter sports that are beginning this week. So winter sports, which includes swimming, bowling, basketball, I think that's about it. But so I know all the schools are having kickoffs with that. So encourage you, if you're just at home and playing video games, try a sport.
Yes. Good. Thank you, Sue. And now Angela Weekly.
Thanks, Shanley, for the recognition. My parents are going crazy with sending it to everybody, so it's been quite embarrassing. It's okay. I just wanted to say I wasn't able to be here last week because I was at a conference, and prior to going to the conference, I had the opportunity to go and learn about school boards and how they function. And what I've learned thus far, and I'm still trying to fit into those shoes, is that this board is doing everything that they said that this is what a school board should be doing. I'm very proud to be a part of this school board who is doing kind of by the book how a school board should be ran from my estimation thus far. So just wanted to say that I'm very proud to do that. Yeah, that's all. And I am under 40.
Well, Angela, thank you. And you should be very proud of the honor. So that's great. And I was thinking, if the school board's doing anything right by functioning, that's just dumb luck, because we're still learning. We're still learning as we go. I was thinking though of all the things with the IASB that gives out. I don't know. I shouldn't say that sounded too harsh, but we don't go through and look at it each time. I think everybody just kind of figures it out, I guess, if that makes sense, and is respectful, I think, and it works, yes. We all work hard at it. But we haven't followed necessarily a book or a playbook that goes through with it.
We fit in the book.
Oh, that's great. That's nice to hear. Yes, that's nice to hear. Well, I won't talk anymore about it. Our next school board meeting is in 2 weeks. It's Monday, November 25th at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom, and I will not be here. So everybody go crazy. With the Shanley will be chairing the meeting for the first time. So, but if there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Andrea.